While retirement is generally seen as a time of relaxation and self-focus, God calls us to love, serve, and help others for a lifetime. He has been preparing us for this retirement season literally our entire lives. In retirement, countless Christians enter a state of spiritual dormancy, not knowing how they are called to have an impact for God's kingdom. The Retirement Reformation seeks to encourage and empower the 50 million Christians approaching or in retirement to embrace the calling God has been preparing in them. When the world says it's time to stop, you can begin to have your greatest impact. Welcome to I Retire for Him, the mouthpiece of the Retirement Reformation, where our goal is to journey from retirement to reformation so you can say, I retire for Him.
Did you know that when you retire, your calling doesn't retire? Your calling is a lifetime calling, and if you're still around, God's not done with you yet. That's pretty exciting, isn't it? You've tuned into I Retire for Him, the voice and resource of the Retirement Reformation, an organization dedicated to you, the retiree, who loves Jesus and wants purpose for all of your days, especially the ones ahead of you. Bruce Bruinswood joins us today as the founder of the Retirement Reformation. He's here to encourage and walk with you through retirement. I'm your host, Jim Brangenberg. Check us out online at retirementreformation.org and on Facebook, Retirement Reformation. The Retirement Reformation is committed to encourage a movement of Christ-following retirees, where every Christ follower is confident in God's plan for a lifetime of faithful service and committed to helping the body of Christ reform its understanding of retirement and then bear fruit without measure. Bruce Bruinswood is here today, the founder of the Retirement Reformation, to refresh our understanding of the Retirement Reformation Manifesto and encourage all of us to sign it and let the 10 principles of the manifesto shape the way we approach every day leading up to and within our retirement years. Bruce, great conversation last week about the Retirement Reformation Manifesto and where it came from, and we look forward to digging even deeper to principles 3 through 6 today. Thanks, Bruce, for coming back.
Well, I'm looking forward to doing that. And just as a reminder to our audience that, in fact, that the Retirement Reformation, in fact, is a movement where every Christ follower, and that would be each one of our listeners and all of their family and all of their friends that, in fact, are Christ followers, that, in fact, they have a manifesto, a package of principles and ideas that will help them to bear fruit and fruit that will last.
And that manifesto has transformed your life, hasn't it, Bruce? When you realized that you got into your retirement years, you knew you had been working with retirees for decades. You knew that something needed to change. What was it that you sensed needed to change, Bruce?
What needed to change was the fact that so many people, when you talked about retirement, were only focused on the financial side and the issues there. And there's plenty of them, no question. And it's not that it's unimportant, but what I realized and what God really prompted into me is that there is so much more. It is so much longer, and it is so much emotionally and spiritually deeper, and that millions of people were missing the message, and that we had to find a way to, in fact, reframe that message and to bring them to a new understanding of what retirement can be, and I think in God's mind and heart should be.
And not only were they missing the message, they were missing all that God had for them. I mean, there's just so much God has for you in retirement. We encourage you to go out to retirementreformation.org and click on the manifesto button. Go into the resources tab, click on manifesto, or just type in retirementreformation.org/manifesto. Print out the manifesto, read it, sign it, post it somewhere, maybe on your refrigerator. If you got one of those ones that still takes a magnet, put it in a frame, put it on your desk, but make sure that you get a chance to review it all the time to remind yourself that God has so much for you in your retirement. We're going to focus today on principles 3 through 6 of the Retirement Reformation Manifesto. If you missed last week's podcast or the previous podcast 100, very exciting, we reviewed the preamble and also principles number 1 and 2. So, Bruce, principle 3, it's contentment. We embrace the promise of the fruits of the Spirit and reject the self-indulgent trappings of retirement. Our vision of a lifetime of service requires refocusing, repositioning, revamping, and re-energizing as we prepare for enter and experience retirement. The allure of doing nothing with eternal value fades quickly. Bruce, why is it that Paul says in Philippians 4:11 through 13 that we need to learn to be content? Why is that important for reforming our view of retirement?
Well, if you just kind of think to yourself, when's the last time that you had a set of circumstances and it really rocked you? You were emotionally, I don't know what to do. Your brain wasn't working, and you didn't know what to do, and you just simply had to calm down to be able to get a perspective that would then lead you forward in an encouraging way and in a fruitful way. And so the same thing is true of our life. I see so many people and they're just frantically running around, whether it be to the grocery store, to the ball game, or whether grandkids or whatever it may be. And their emotions are not under control. And so the ability to be able to find those moments and times of contentment where emotional maturity can step into it, and where you can step back and you can take a look at what it is that God would have us consider. I know in myself, when I'm faced with a really difficult situation, and it's kind of, my dad had a funny term. He said, "Bruce, sometimes I just feel bamboozled." And I'd say, "Dad, not only do I not know how to spell that, I have no idea what that means." And he just means that I'm kind of unsettled. I'm upset. And when I'm unsettled and upset, I make terrible decisions. When I have contentment, and we have it because we have a relationship with Jesus and what he tells us to do with the power of the Holy Spirit, we've got a chance to not only be contented, but to make good decisions in that contentment, ones that will lead us forward with clarity and not just leave us bamboozled.
Yeah, I have no idea what the etymology of bamboozled is, but when I grew up, bamboozled meant you've been sold a bill of goods. You've been promised X, but really what you got was Z, not even Y, but you got Z. And I think that's the truth of the American dream of retirement. We've been sold a bill of goods that a lifetime of leisure, 30 years of being on vacation, will bring you all the happiness that there is to experience. And yet we know for a very certain fact that isn't true. Correct, Bruce?
We sure do know that isn't true. We know it experientially. I know it experientially in my life, and I see it experientially in the lives of the hundreds, perhaps thousands of people that I've had a privilege of interacting with over the last 50 years. And so it when I see that, my heart hurts, and God's heart hurts, and He wants us to be able to have freedom and joy in Him. That's His desire for us, because His love endures forever.
Right.
And so when we think, what does that look like? What does that love look like? One of the things that it looks like is that to live a life where you can be contented in the journey that you're on. It may be a very relaxed journey. It may be a fairly intense journey, but to be contented with where you are and what He has you doing and what He's called you to do.
And that contentment, as Paul said in Philippians 4:11 through 13, that he had to learn to be content. You're going to have to reject a lot of messages that are being sent out to you all the time, and to realize that contentment is of great gain. And that Paul also said that. All right, principle 4 is stewardship. It says this: we realize retirement may extend for 30 years or longer. The reality of longevity demands that we see all retirement seasons as a resource to be appreciated, embraced, valued, and to faithfully steward. We are committed to healthy living. Bruce, I think before we answer, what do you mean by stewardship? What is it? When you talk about all these seasons, these retirement seasons, what do you mean by that again?
Well, when we look at the 30 years of a planning horizon that we should be using for what our expectations of longevity are, and we talk about the reality of longevity, roughly, if you think back, your 20s were different than your 30s. Your 30s were different than your 40s. Well, in the 30 years of retirement, starting, let's say, at 65, you've got 3 different stages of life One is a very active one. One is very much more individually relational. We call it mentoring. And a third is a reflective one where you can take all the things you've learned and be able to share them with the generations that are coming. And so to be able to steward each one of those stages of life in the most effective way. Now, the word stewardship has been abducted often by those who are just talk about fundraising.
Right.
And I want to make it really clear to our audience, that's not what we're talking about. In fact, stewardship is all of the resources that God has entrusted you in and now is equipping you, and through his power gives you the ability to be able to manage those resources in an effective and efficient way. And whether we're talking about in John, we're talking about the vines and the branches, whether we're talking about Matthew and we're talking about the person who gave whether it be 10 talents or 5 talents or 0 talents, we want to be 5 and 10 talent people. So that in fact, when the resources that we have, and that includes our emotional stability, that includes the not only the skills that we have, but our ability to be contented in him and to be able to make wise decisions about what it is that we are doing as we solve individual problems and we create relationships.
So powerful. And to think of stewarding our days, not just the money that we spend during those days, but to steward the actual breath that we've been given, because it is limited. All of us have been given a certain number of breaths, a certain number of heartbeats, and then we'll come to an end. And to know that we need to steward them and steward them well through all the seasons of retirement. It's such a powerful statement, but it's also such a great recognition of the significance of our retirement years. Bruce, I love that point of the manifesto. When we come back in our next segment, we're going to talk to Wes Wick. He's got a story to share with us. And in the third segment, we're going to finish up with talking about Principles 5 of the manifesto, which is love, and Principle 6, which is community. You're listening to I Retire for Him. We'll be right back.
Recreating Retirement is an interactive small group study helping you to move from nothing to what's next. You can join us on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. East Coast time on Facebook Live. Our goal for this study is to provide a group setting for interaction and new ideas while leading you through a first step in your journey from retirement to reformation. Here's the big idea. During the next 5 years, 5,000 small groups will experience this journey of discovery in churches and faith-based organizations across the country. Is your church a place where recreating retirement needs to be planted? Join us online to experience the study or prepare to lead a small group at your church or ministry. Email us at contactus@retirementreformation.org or go to our website at retirementreformation.org. That's retirementreformation.org.
Hey, welcome back to I Retire for Him. Bruce, in every second segment of every show, it sounds like I'm a broken record, you always bring in an incredible guest to share their story of what God's doing in their life. Bruce, who do you have for us today?
Oh, I have a very special friend. His name is Wes Wick, and he and his wife, Judy, are just really special people, and they have real sincere meaning to us. As a matter of fact, Wes was an integral part of the meeting we had in November of 2019. That was really the foundation and the kickoff for what has become the Retirement Reformation and support for the ministry that Wes and Judy have. And so it's just special to have you on for this 101st show and to talk about the Retirement Reformation Manifesto. So Wes, tell me, how has the basic principles of the manifesto, which I know are integral and a part of who you are and the young enough to serve and the have to ministry that you give leadership to, kind of tie those together for us a little bit, if you would.
Yeah, I just love the breadth of the conversation there within the manifesto. Just there's a lot of unlearning that needs to happen, I think, with regard to our cultural understanding of retirement versus more of a biblical standard. And you really lay it out well with all 10 of those points. And it's something that I think all of us as Christians, we are influenced as well by our culture. So it's really nice having somebody who's given a lot of thought to the different elements of resisting our culture's imprint on retirement. It can be much different than what our culture is saying.
Well, isn't that the truth? So how has God been using you in the last few years to be able to bring a new message, his message, to an audience that you serve? Tell us what you've been doing.
Yeah, one of our hallmarks in our ministry is we really want to bring some young people along with us in this mission of challenging older adults. It's not just a peer-to-peer kind of challenge, but it's getting younger people. We know that we have the ability to influence them, but they also have the ability to influence us and to challenge us during our pre-retirement or retirement years. We've have a board of seven on our board. 4 out of the 7 on our board are under 55. So we've kind of tried to really create a good mix. One person who's been part of the Retirement Reformation who's on our board now is Dr. Amy Hansen, and I know you know her well, but she's been an example of somebody who started very young in working with older adults. God called her into this area of ministry way back in her teenage years. She went to college, got a degree, and started off serving as the adult leader for a group of over 300 active adults in Las Vegas, Nevada, I believe. Reno or not Las Vegas, but in Nevada. And just has had when we came into this area of ministry about 16 years ago, Amy was such an inspiration to us, somebody who's outside the age group that we're targeting, and just to see that kind of passion. So we've used Amy and others in a video series we just completed a year ago, right there in Colorado Springs, related to finishing strong. And we took about eight different sessions to get our message across there. But it's very, very much parallel to what you're doing with the Retirement Manifesto and just the Retirement Reformation movement that you've come into. So
what would be the heart of your message in those eight sessions and the presentations and the conversations, the intergenerational conversations that you have? What's the real heart of that message?
I would say the crux is just really making sure that we know our retirement years belong to God, that we're here to serve Him, not to serve ourselves. Our culture has a very much laissez-faire attitude toward retirement. And if you want to knock yourself out and work hard during your retirement, good for you. If you want to kick back and do nothing, like you've talked about a lot, just, that's an option too. And sometimes the church buys into that as well. So we really just want people to emphasize that God has some of His best plans for us still ahead in our later years, not just our earlier years. We don't want to minimize those earlier years because those were significant as well. But the significance doesn't end until the Lord takes us home. So that's really very central to our message. I know it's central to your message too. Just keep on serving the Lord wholeheartedly. We're going to have some challenges. In fact, our first video with Amy Hansen just talks about just the challenges we face, but not getting those challenges out there in front of us so much that we can't see the opportunity. We really need to be realistic about some of the challenges, but also very wide open to the opportunities God puts in front of us, mentoring relationships, all kinds of opportunities we have now as we approach retirement or in retirement. People have a lot more freedom in their time schedule, things like that. So definitely just a wonderful season to serve the Lord full throttle, wholeheartedly.
We are going to be introducing an intergenerational prayer ministry as part of the Retirement Reformation here later this fall. What is the greatest values that you have found for the intergenerational relationships that you focus on? What are the 4 or 5 things that you think really make a difference when that intergenerational activity takes place?
Yeah, when the light bulb goes on in both directions, those relationships, they're so natural in the family. As a grandparent, you wouldn't think about not having a relationship with your grandkids. But I think just being valued for churches that are so segregated by age group that you have no contact at all with younger generations, and that value that you have in your peer group, it can be far surpassed. I think when you do have some of these relationships outside your peer group with younger people who love you and value you, it's just a neat additional validation of God's hand in your life and your experience, and then to encourage younger people that, boy, you can not only relate to your peer group, but you can impact kids far younger than you. You can impact older adults. Paul tapped both Titus and Timothy to impact all generations. And I was at a graduation ceremony several years ago, and 3 speakers in the graduation ceremony talked about the impact these graduates would have on their generation. And it was like, oh, just, it's more than just their generation. They can impact all of us, no matter what their age. It's not just we're not just going through life in this little generational slot. We have the opportunity, if we open our eyes to it, to have these relationships more broadly than just our peer group.
Yeah, I think that's an important thought, an important idea, and we want to be able to encourage that. And it is one of the realities, and unfortunately, so many churches that, in fact, there isn't any intergenerational mixture. And to be able to provide wisdom for the younger generation and to get encouragement and new ideas and energy from that younger generation is really, really important. Well, just to kind of conclude our part of the conversation here, Wes, what would the ideas that are inherent in the manifesto? How would you, if you were describing that to an audience of a mixed audience, an intergenerational audience that you were speaking to, what would you tell them about the manifesto that they ought to pay attention to?
Yeah, again, just having that attitude that God is not finished with us. He's definitely has more in store. That the intentionality aspect of the manifesto, just having that heart of openness, the compassion, the serving, all of those things are just valuable parts of retirement. They can be just central to your life. It's not a season where you just want to put those things aside and say, I did my time, I did my thing. But no, this is a season where you can really experience God's goodness in a deeper way, in a broader way. And I would just encourage people to look at each of those 10 items in the manifesto. There's fruit in each of those. And I know your upcoming book talking about the fruit of the Spirit, just that's so central to our lives and to making our lives count, is to really grapple with what does it mean to be loving and patient and kind, and all the fruit of the Spirit that we want God to just develop within us, keep developing and keep growing the attitude that we've learned it all and we've now arrived. No, we want to keep learning. We want to keep expanding our horizons.
Brian Kluth shared a story of an acquaintance, and And the gentleman was saying that, his 70s were a great decade, but the 80s were even better. And the 90s were even better. And the guy was 103. And so Brian asked him, what's so great about 103? He says, I don't have any peer pressure. So,
That's that.
I thought that was valuable. Wes, it's so good to connect today. Thank you for making the time. Give our best to Judy, and we'll look forward to the next time that we'll be together. Jim, you got any other questions, or you want to close us out?
I just have one question, Wes. When you see it working, when you see an intergenerational connection within a body of Christ, within a local body of Christ, what does it look like? Because to me, that's exciting. I want to hear about it.
There's one senior pastor that read my book, Have To, and really kind of latched onto the idea of intergenerational leadership, not just intergenerational connections, but getting younger people involved in the leadership. And she contacted me after about a year of being involved. And she said, I want you to know that most of the leaders we have in our second half adult ministry are in their 20s. And she said, you have no idea what that has done for our church in terms of relationships. The church is just so much more healthy when you have that cross fertilization between generations, and it's not just a Cub Scout walking a senior adult across the street. It's people that are actually involved in relationship together and valuing older adults valuing those younger people. It's just an exciting dimension when you can get outside just the peer-to-peer aspect of the industry.
Wow. Now that's something we can all look forward to. Wes Wick, thanks for being on I Retire For Him today. We'll be right back.
Our work on this earth doesn't end when the paycheck stops. God calls us to be faithful for a lifetime. Whether you're looking forward to retirement or you're already there, our all-small group study, Recreating Retirement, will help you understand, engage, and activate what God has for you in this fourth quarter of life. Join Retirement Reformation founder Bruce Bruinsma as you consider your past, strengths, spiritual gifts, and your passions, and how they all come together as the call God has for you in these years. Connect with us on our online community group at facebook.com/Retirement Reformation, Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Eastern, or if you'd like to bring Recreating Retirement to your church, email us at contactus@retirementreformation.org. Are you ready to start your life-changing journey today?
Hey, welcome back to I Retire For Him, the voice of the Retirement Reformation and the resource of the Retirement Reformation. We talk all the time about Retirement Reformation. Check us out on our website, retirementreformation.org. So many resources out there, great books for you to access, small group studies. We actually have some events that are going on all the time, all over the country. Bruce, why don't you just really quick, before we jump into the principle number 5 of the manifesto, just talk about the Oxygen for Life weekend that you like to hold at churches around the country.
Well, there's 3 different key areas that we are making available. One is called Oxygen for Life. And I just love that name because it's oxygen that God created that gives us life, as well as all the nature that's all around us. And it's all integrated. So to be able to have that. And so where we're able to come together in a church or in a community setting with the seniors from the area and the seniors from the organization, and spend an evening where we dig deep into these kinds of issues. Then on Saturday morning, we gather again and we take another 5 issues and we dig deeper interrelationally. And so that in fact, we can learn and we can apply what it is that we mean. So that's the Oxygen for Life. Then we have Recreating Retirement, which is a 10-step workshop that helps people who go, I do have a hole in my soul and I don't know what to fill it with. And so it takes them through a learning process where they can come up and answer the question of what's next. And then we have a new idea that we're talking about, Jim. And I'm hoping that you and I can do some of these together. It's called Retirement Voices. Retirement Voices is where you and I, or myself and someone else who can speak into these issues, have an evening at a church or a community setting where we talk to an audience, and I'll talk for 20 minutes. You'll talk for 20 minutes. We'll converse and then we'll invite the audience to give us questions. And so an evening of retirement voices, I think, is a third way that, in fact, we can interact all together. So if our audience would like to more about any one of those and be a voice to encourage their church community or their other group to be able to experience this, please connect with us. So thanks for asking.
Yeah, retirementreformation.org. Click on the Contact Us page. All right, principle number 5 is love, Bruce, and it reads this way. We acknowledge that people matter to God, and we cultivate our hearts for others. As we grow closer to God, He will give us the capacity and opportunity to revitalize valued relationships and have greater kingdom impact on those He puts in our path. You don't say the word love in all of that, but you're describing love in all of our actions. Why is it, or what is it that we need to reform in our thinking about love? As we get older, is it harder to love?
Well, it seems that way because I certainly run into an awful lot of grumpy old people. And that was one of the motivations for writing the book about faith. But when we talk about faith, it is in fact God's love for us that really leads us in a pathway that will change our relationships. Love is the core that will promote that and reform us from loneliness and be able to help us to make an impact. And so that's the reason why number 5 on our list was love.
It's so powerful. And love also shapes our hearts. And when we're loving on other people, it shapes who we are. And we make, like I said, we eliminate some of those grumpier old men who are out there ice fishing in Wisconsin or in the Minnesota-Wisconsin border. Bruce, when you see love invade the heart of a retiree, when they realize that they've been given 30 years to repair relationships, reinvigorate relationships, revitalize them even, in other words, how do you see their lives be impacted?
Well, you look into their eyes. It shows up in 2 different ways. Number 1, you look in their eyes, it's got a new light. And then you look at the expression on their face, and it's got a new joy. They're a different person. They are changed. They are reformed, and they are a changed person. And that's what God calls us to do, to continue to reform ourselves to represent more like Him. But you see it in the eyes, you see it in the face, and you even see it in the way they walk. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah, in some ways it might be like the love makes the world go round. I'm pretty sure God's love makes the world go round. All right, principle number 6 is community. We need community and connection with others, an authentic relationship. Wow, 3 very powerful words: community, connection, authentic. Our retirement years are best spent in community. It is in community with family, friends, fellow believers, plus the weak, poor, and disenfranchised, where we both learn and serve. The intergenerational church provides community between and among believers. Bruce, why is community a key to living out our faith in abundance in our retirement years? What's it look like?
Well, Jesus knew that, in fact, none of us could be Him, but that in community, in between the capacity that He's built into Jim and Bruce, that together we can be more than we are individually. And so it's that coming into community that makes a difference. We know, and we've done some of our podcasts on the tremendous impact of loneliness, and the way that loneliness is counteracted is to be in community. First of all, in community with God, and then secondly, in community with each other. And so I see so many seniors now that are distancing themselves from community because they feel unappreciated. And so to appreciate those that are in those age groups and to be able to, we want you to join us in community, because it is in community, then we can see where it is that we can make a difference, whether it's family, it's friends, or those disenfranchised and the poor and the lonely that we talk about in that community section.
So, but Bruce, in my mind, it seems like it's this kind of idea that tends to put all of the quote unquote old people in a room together on Sunday mornings so they can all be together in community.
Boy, that is true, unfortunately. And one of the things that the Retirement Reformation wants to address is the importance of intergenerational relationships. As a matter of fact, we're introducing a intergenerational prayer ministry. It will be called Age to Age Intergenerational Prayer Ministry here in the next number of months. And so that it's so critically that we take the silos that we put people in by age and we bring them together, because the wisdom of the age of the older cannot be communicated to the younger if we're in different silos. And the energy and the excitement and the enthusiasm of the younger can't be expressed to the older unless we break down those silos. So bringing the two together is going to be critically important.
What I love is, what we've talked about on previous podcasts, and we encourage you to go back and listen to our podcast because we have a lot of great conversations, is that, I spent 20 years in a cultural experiment, of a societal experiment, living in Florida in retirement communities, even though I wasn't retired yet. And what I found was a lot of those people living in community with other retirees were miserable, that they missed their family, that they missed their hometown. None of them missed the snow, but they just missed the community that they grew up with. And because everybody was just seeking leisure and pleasure, they weren't seeking authentic relationships in those communities. Not categorically, but it seemed like a lot. Bruce, is living in a 55 plus environment, a 55 plus community, the answer to all this community stuff?
I think one of the lies that we need to counteract is the fact that when we are in one of those communities, what it's going to be everybody having fun together. Everybody having fun together. So let me just give you a couple of thoughts. Number one, when you move, I don't care where you move, from where you are, you take yourself with you and you leave your friends behind. And so when you take yourself with you, the issues that you thought were going to be solved by moving someplace else may very well not be. Secondly, when you are in a community that doesn't have values that in fact will feed your soul, then in fact you tend to adopt those values and everything goes south, or at least it does not have any meaning and purpose.
So think long and hard before moving away from everything you know and love. Yes, getting away from the snow and the cold is okay. There's nothing wrong with a little vacation, nothing wrong with a little leisure. But to do it and miss your family, there's nothing that can replace those years. So we encourage you to really think through that. Maybe just go for a month at a time down to the warmth, wherever that may be. Bruce, great conversation on principles 3 through 6 of the Retirement Reformation Manifesto. We'd like people to go out there and print that out, Bruce, wouldn't we? And sign it.
We'd like them to do a couple of things. We'd like them to print it out, sign it, sit down for half an hour or 45 minutes and just kind of reflect on it. And then I'm going to add one more piece to it. And then take out your Bible and read the book of John. Engage with the Retirement Reformation and then engage with the book of John. And you'll be reinforced in the things that we talk about here with God's perspective as spoken through the Holy Spirit working through John to be able to reflect what Jesus said. And you'll see that, in fact, there's huge parallels.
Great words. Thanks, Bruce, for a great conversation today. You've been listening to I Retire for Him, the voice and resource of the Retirement Reformation. I'm your host, Jim Brangenberg, and of course, Bruce Brynsma has been leading the way today as we go through the Retirement Reformation Manifesto online, retirementreformation.org/manifesto. We're just a couple of Christ followers journeying from retirement to reformation of our retirement, so we can ultimately say, I retire for Him.
Retire for Him.
Thanks for listening to I Retire for Him with your hosts Jim and Martha Brangenberg and Retirement Reformation founder Bruce Brynsma. I Retire for Him is the mouthpiece of the Retirement Reformation. Most Christians tend to follow the world's pattern of rest and self-pampering during retirement. However, in your retirement, you can be focused on God's unique call to love, serve, and help others. This can be your best season of life if you take advantage of a life's worth of knowledge and experience and combine it with a greater freedom of time and money and invest it all in the generations both preceding and following you. The Retirement Reformation is encouraging Christians to find and follow God's call in all seasons and aspects of life, especially in retirement. Take time to sign the manifesto at retirementreformation.org and explore the wealth of resources available on our site. Join this movement of God and journey from retirement to reformation so you can say, I retire for Him. Go to retirementreformation.org.